What up, my awesome viewers? It is Real Gion here, and we have the review of the Note 9 Exynos. Why should you get this one? How much are you saving if you do? Let's find out together. A single doubt, when you first look at this phone and you feel the phone, it looks like money, it feels like money. Then again, if you're the ones that bought this phone brand new during the release date, then you paid a hefty sum of money, so I guess it should be expected. For those of you that are patient enough to wait for the sale, because that's just how Samsung phones are, then you will be handsomely rewarded with your patience. Either way, you are looking at a 6.4-inch notch-less design that is bright and beautiful with that infinity display. This is a big phone, but you probably know that going into this video. It's the type of phone that feels good for people like me with bigger hands. On the other hand, if you have smaller hands, then this phone might not be the one for you if you're planning to use the phone one-handed most of the time. This is also a very slippery phone, so you might want to buy a case just in case you drop your phone. Since the phone has a glass back design, if you drop the phone, there is going to be spider webs. There is going to be lots of spider webs. If you haven't held the Note 9 before, then you would think that the display wouldn't really make that much of a difference. But coming from the V20, the display really impresses with the way how it looks, and most of the time, I don't even need to turn up the resolution because I don't think you really need to. On the back of the phone, you have a dual camera setup and that fingerprint scanner. I remember back then with the Note 8, lots of people were having problems with the fingerprint scanner because it's so close to the camera. The way how they position the fingerprint sensor is so much better than before, but some might think that it's not that much of an improvement if they got smaller hands. There is a ever so slight camera hump, but a case would easily fix this. Of course, this is where most reviewers would recommend D-brand, but I'm not sponsored by D-brand, at least not yet, so I'll save those recommendations for later. On the bottom of the phone, you have space for the S Pen, and last but certainly not least, you got that headphone jack. My particular Note 9 is packing the Exynos 9810 chipset, which is where most people would believe or think, or maybe even prove that this is the inferior version of the Note 9 because numerous benchmarks says that it is. If this is true, then why would Samsung do something like this where they have a superior and inferior version of the phone and then sell both of them for the same price? This is something that you guys in the comments down below need to tell me about because I'm wondering that myself. Samsung phones having two versions isn't something new, so why would they continue on doing this? I know that two versions means for different regions, like the Snapdragon version is for the US and certain parts of China, the Exynos version is for the UK, and I believe most of Asia. Comment down below if this is wrong, cause I'm kinda curious to find this out myself. On the graphics department, this phone has the Mali G72 MP18, which is also proven to be inferior to the Exynos 630 on benchmark scores. Based on the numbers, most of you have seen by now, the Exynos version of the Note 9 is inferior. And a lot of people that paid good money for this phone to get an inferior version, that's not okay. On the other hand, people that paid less money for this phone might be able to justify why they paid less money for it, which makes sense to get an inferior product. But in reality, you won't really notice that the Exynos version is inferior unless you compare the two phones side by side, playing very graphically intense games. Personally, I use my Note 9 mainly to play emulators such as PPSSPP, PSXE, SNES, Game Boy, the list goes on. When I put this phone against something like the OnePlus 6, which has the Snapdragon chipset, it's the same thing. An example on the top of my head would be putting the two phones on Dolphin emulator later playing something like Time Splitter Future Perfect. Both ran equally bad. They're both terrible. This and other examples that led me to believe that it's literally just numbers, and I'm sure there are other comparisons to show that the Exynos version is inferior, so if it's the inferior version, then it is what it is. We just gotta hashtag deal with it. Right now this phone is rocking the Samsung One UI Android Pie, and I like it. As a matter of fact, I actually made a video on this change, and I'll leave a link to that video in the description down below, that like button for you guys to check out. I like the camera now. It comes pre-cropped when you turn on video stabilization instead of cropping after. But you lose the option of having to take pictures and record video as two separate buttons. Now it's one of those little shifty things that's similar to an iPhone. The icons is something that personally seems unprofessional because this is a Note device. But it's just a matter of preferences, and if you like the icons, then kudos to you. You can always change the icons with icon packs. This phone is very smooth and lag-free so far, which is awesome. There are two speakers, one bottom firing speaker and the earpiece of the phone, which also acts as another speaker, and the phone has Dolby Atmos support, which on paper makes the phone sounds better. Personally, I cannot tell the difference, but if you guys can, let me know in the comments down below. The call quality is great, people sound very clear on the other end, and they report that I also sound really good, which, to be honest, I always sound good. Anyways, here's a sound sample. The main camera shooter is 12 megapixel with f1.5 to f2.4 aperture wide-angle lens, both OIS and EIS. Then you have the secondary telephoto lens with also 12 megapixel with a f2.4 aperture that supports autofocus and OIS. The second camera is for zooming so you don't lose the detail when capturing pictures or videos. For the most part, I think the main camera is something that is more than enough for the average user because it's one of those cameras that just manages to look good with just plain old auto mode. Whip it out, shoot it, close it in. But there's also a pro mode for those that like to fine-tune their pictures and videos, but honestly I think auto mode is more than enough to capture the moments. As a fun fact, the Note 9 is my main camera that I use for a good chunk of my videos. Then you have the selfie camera, which is a 8 megapixel f1.7 aperture wide lens, and most if not all of the videos where you see my face is recorded with this selfie camera. Again, this camera is more than enough for the average user. Here are some samples of both. Okay, this is the video sample of the Note 9. I turn on video stabilization, so it should look pretty good. It won't be anywhere as near as that S10 with the steady shot. Dude, that steady shot looks so freaking cool. This will not be anywhere near it, but this is the sample that you guys will get. Okay, this is the front sample of the Note 9 with video stabilization on. This is how the exposure would look like. And let me know in the comments down below about the sound quality. From my particular experience, it looks like it's pretty good, but then again, You guys comment down below and you guys let me know. Battery life is another one of those things that makes this phone inferior to the Snapdragon version. I have seen lots of people getting around 3 to 4 hours of battery life, which is pretty bad considering that this phone packs a whopping 4000 milliamp battery. Does that mean 1000 milliamp equals to 1 hour? Then again, depending on when you watch this video, 4000 milliamp might not seem like it's a lot anymore. Personally, when I end the day, the phone typically have around 40 to 50% of battery life left, and there are days when I try to even push the phone to go for 1/2 day. It still ends with around 20% before charging the phone. There was a time that I pushed this phone all the way to 13% with 7.5 hours screen on time. With this in mind, I guess in theory, my phone can last around 8 hours before calling it quits, which is pretty freaking good because if you use the phone for more than 8 hours in a day, I mean, it seems like it's way too much. Then again, if you're that power user, I guess 8 hours is just not enough. For the average user, I honestly think 8 hours of usage is more than enough. Even for someone like me who plays video games on the phone, couldn't really bring it down to 0 by the end of the day. Then again, I mainly play emulators, so your experience may just vary. So of course the Note 9 Exynos is the inferior version based on a lot of what people are saying, and here's the thing though, it really does boil down to how much money are you paying for this phone. We're talking 2019 now, the S10 is probably out by the time I release this video, maybe even the Note 10, who even knows. But here's the thing though, this is a really good phone for the average user, assuming that you're not paying $1,000 for it. If you're paying $1,000 for it, okay, here's a moment of silence. Yes. If you're paying $1,000 for it, this is a lot of money, which is not worth it whatsoever. But if you're paying like half as much, maybe even a little less, depending on when you choose to buy this particular phone, I say this is money well spent. It's a lot of great features. It's a lot of features where you will use most of it, and then there's a bunch of features that you don't really care for, but it's there. It's one of those phones where it's like a few years down the line, you have a lot of free time, you mess around with the phone and you're like, hey, this is something that I haven't seen yet before. This is gonna be one of those phones. But more than likely, for the average user, you're probably just gonna use the camera and you're gonna be pretty okay with the battery life. The battery life isn't the best, but it's also not the worst. So there's that going for it, which is nice. And of course, if you want to buy this particular phone, I'm going to put the link down below. And if you do buy it and support me at the same time, you guys are awesome. And of course, if you made it this far into the video and you haven't subscribed yet, click on the subscribe button down there. Don't forget to ring that bell to become part of the mighty notification squad. And of course, you right there, you stay awesome.